The Bucks are now up 3-0 on the Miami Heat, the team that last year beat them, and not only beat them, but demolished them. And this time around, the Bucks are not only beating the Heat, but they are demolishing them. This team feels night and day different from what it was last year, and they did this with just a few adjustments and one major roster change. There is a lot of praise to go around for how the Bucks made changes and destroyed the Heat in the way they did, and there's also a lot to be said about the potential that this team has in terms of actually winning the championship this year and the threat that they pose to other teams in the league. So, let's give that praise and let's talk about how much of a threat they are. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video, it only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. By the way, if you would like to hear my take on the Heat side of things for this game in particular, or these 3 games, that reaction and all of my takes on that is over on my second channel, and it is over on Spotify and soon to be other audio platforms, where my rusty recaps from my second channel are being uploaded there as short podcasts. Both of those links, the second channel as well as the Spotify link, are going to be in the description. Also, I'll probably do a video on them when they lose game 4 or 5, whichever it is, so stay tuned for that. So how have the Bucks actually dominated the Heat in the way that they did? Well, they took some of the adjustments that they should have done last year, and they did them, and then also they got Jrue Holiday, who is significantly better than Eric Bledsoe. What were those actual adjustments? Well, Giannis guarding Jimmy Butler, switching and not overcommitting to paint defense, and offensively making quicker and better decisions with the ball. Giannis on Butler has been dominant, and it's something that people were calling for all series long last year, and we really only got late when it was too little too late. With Giannis as the primary defender, Jimmy through 3 games is averaging a whopping 15 points on 40% true shooting. His defense, more importantly than Jimmy's actual scoring, has prevented him from going downhill and creating offense for others, which is really the foundation of Miami's offense. The Heat get most of their offense when Jimmy drives and makes passes out to the perimeter or down low to Bam, whatever it may be, and because he's kind of locked out of the paint, those passes have not been happening as frequently, and because of this, as well as Jimmy just not being able to create offense himself, the rest of the Heat roster is kind of just looking around trying to figure it out, and they ain't figuring it out. On top of that, when Jimmy actually did manage to go downhill and kick it out to shooters and things like that, the Bucks did a much better job actually contesting those shots and not just giving them completely clean looks. Wasn't so much the case in game 1, especially early into that game, but in game 2 and 3, the shooters have not been able to get much space, to say the least. Overall, they've done a great job defending the perimeter while also still being dominant defending the paint, and this is an adjustment that they have made throughout the year. It's not new, but we're actually seeing how this works in the playoffs in comparison to last year. And it's nice to see that it does work, because having all 5 of your defenders care about defending the basket when it's not necessary, like the Bucks did in the past, was over the top and resulted in getting torn apart by good shooting teams. The making better decisions thing is not really actually an adjustment, it's just a factor that comes with the roster changes as well as just the overall roster getting better. Jrue Holiday has averaged 10 assists per game, and I believe he had like a 15 and 13 assist game in 2 of these 3 games. He has just been fantastic as a distributor, and that has been infectious among the entire roster, as the extra pass has been made on pretty much every possession that I've watched from the Bucks so far. Now, the Heat did make life easier for the Bucks because of some of their problems, which again I'll do a video on, and check it out on audio platforms, my initial thoughts. But the primary reason the Bucks have been dominant is the Bucks. There are things on the Heat that you could exploit, and really there always were, but the Bucks were not in position to do that last year, and this year they are. I have to give praise to this roster, of course, but also more specifically, I have to give praise to Mike Budenholzer, and the reason for that is he is the one I have been the most critical of by far. I said when this roster came together that Giannis would be responsible for the result regardless of what Bud does, but at the same time I was also like, I feel like Budenholzer is going to pull some bullshit that's going to fuck over the Bucks because he did that last year, he did it the year before, so why would I believe he'd do anything different? Well, maybe it's a little late, but he's done stuff different. He came into this series with adjustments that he should have made last year, and hey, better late than never, I suppose, and those adjustments have made the Bucks a significantly better team. Now let's talk about this team's actual chances at a championship. Before the playoffs, in what will be their second round matchup, I would have picked the Nets to win in 6, maybe even 5 games, depending on a variety of factors. And now that I've seen the Bucks as they are, as they've dominated the Heat, I'm more likely to lean towards it's a minimum 6 game series, and I'd still give the Nets the win there. They're still a significantly better team than the Miami Heat, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Bucks won, and I probably would have been shocked a few months ago. So that's obviously changed. In that series, it's no secret that Giannis will absolutely feast in the paint versus this team. While I think Nick Claxton and even Kevin Durant at times can do things to bother him a little bit, for the most part, he's kind of just going to be running to the basket 50 times a game and averaging 40 points per game. I think that's literally what's going to happen. But you also have the question of stopping 3 of the greatest scoring talents basketball has ever seen that are on the same fucking roster with other offensive supporting pieces like Joe Harris, who shoots like 48% from 3, and you have to stop them as well. So that's a whole different ball game. Now, Giannis on KD, I think, is a really good matchup. Drew Holiday on likely Kyrie Irving is good. Chris Middleton on James Harden does the job. So I think matchup-wise, the Bucks actually do match up better versus this Nets team. It is worth saying that Brook Lopez will absolutely get played off the floor in that series. In fact, he should probably play no more than like 15 minutes a game in that series, but luckily Bobby Portis and PJ Tucker being added to this team, more specifically PJ, make me more confident in this team running small with Giannis at center, which I've wanted them to do anyways, but I especially think we're going to be seeing that in this series. So basically my point is the Bucks match up really well with the Nets, and the Nets are going to score a lot of points. I would say the Bucks are the best defensive matchup against the Nets in the league, and the Nets will still probably average like 110 points per game in the playoffs or somewhere in that ballpark or in this series. But there's a chance the Bucks average 115 because Giannis can get to the basket every time their shooters hit their shot, their players make the right decisions, and the Nets can't defend them at all. So it could be a case of, yeah, the Nets offense is like 40% better than the Bucks, but the Bucks defense is like 80% better than the Nets defense. And then I don't know how the math ends up working out there, but somehow the Bucks win. After that, of course, I think they would just kill the Sixers, Hawks, or Knicks. It's probably the Sixers to come into the Eastern Conference Finals. Unfortunate for the Sixers based on the season they just had, but I'm pretty confident the Bucks win that one. Though the Sixers would be a pretty good defensive team against Giannis. I think that's a pretty damn difficult matchup for them on that end, but at the end of the day, I'm going to pick the Bucks because I just think they're the better team. So, assuming they beat the Nets, assuming they beat likely the Sixers, and they go to the finals, I think I would take them over every team in the Western Conference except for the Lakers. And even versus the Lakers, I would probably say it's similar to the Nets, where if they win, I won't be shocked, but I'm going to lean Lakers. So, round 2, I guess my prediction for that, I'm going to do a video previewing it regardless, because let's be honest, that video is going to do very well. But regardless, I would pick the Nets in that series, and I would pick the Lakers in this hypothetical finals. But I would not be surprised either way if the Bucks actually ended up winning. So My belief in this team has skyrocketed. When I did my Heat versus Bucks preview video, I think I said Bucks in 6, and that I was possibly making a mistake in believing in this team once again because they burned me the last 2 years that I did it. But clearly this time around they're actually different, so that's good. Again, check out my Rusty recaps on Spotify. Check out the second channel for post-game recaps for the playoffs. Subscribe to the channel. Shout out to Rudy, and that is it.